You're live.
All right, council, I'd like to call this special council meeting of December 14th, 2023 to order with adoption of the agenda. And I want to amend the agenda to add item 11A, Revelstoke Community Housing Society request for support update. Someone want to make that motion for me? Councillor Cherry, seconded by Councillor Devlin. All in favor? Motion's carried. In adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of December 12th. Someone want to make that motion for me? Councillor Devlin, second by Councillor Palmer. All in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from those minutes?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a
Councillor Staples.
motion that staff work with the childcare providers to address the bus and scheduling concerns and report back to council on progress at the January 12th council meeting.
And so I'm going to just make a comment before I ask for, no, I'll ask for a seconder for that, and then I'm going to make a comment.
For clarification, I believe we'd all have to agree to have this put on the agenda.
No, it's business arising.
It's business arising? Okay, second.
Going to second it? All right, so I make this statement. So you've received the emails about the basically kids can't get on the bus, et cetera, we need to hold the bus. School district has told us that they have 6 minutes at one school for the kids to get on the bus at the end of 2:30, 8 minutes at the other school for the kids to get on the bus. I fail to see the problem with the Revelstoke after school society's kids being able to get on the bus in the same time frame. So I just want to make that statement so that you are all aware that the school district does it day in and day out. And I know that we've changed to a new agenda or a new schedule for busing. And there's going to be some flips as they move forward, but to change the entire busing schedule or go down that route for a small group. If this were a bigger city, you guys wouldn't even be talking about it. So I just want to make that statement. So now the motion again, can you read that to me, Council?
Certainly. 1 second, please. That staff work with the childcare providers to address bus and scheduling concerns and report back to council on progress at the January 12th council meeting.
Okay, and so I want clarification as what do you mean by work with them?
Well,
They set the schedule based on what's going to work for the community. And as I just mentioned, the school board has figured out how to get these kids on bus in 6 and 8 minutes. Is that what you're wanting? You're wanting them to change the schedule to accommodate these people?
I will leave the details to Director Black and the after-school childcare providers to work out. I believe that's an operational issue, but I believe we've had numerous emails mentioning concern. I believe there's some legitimacy to the concern, and I would personally like to see the city work with those after-school care providers to address those concerns and to ensure that we are meeting the needs of the community.
Okay, so, and again, I'm going to go, this is one group. Do we change the whole schedule for one group? I'm not going to get into much more than that, but for clarification from Mr. Black, Mr. Black, is this clear to you, this motion as to how to move forward, or is it not clear?
Your worship and members of council, I'm not quite certain what a interim solution would be, as it would also, as you stated, the Columbia Park School has got 6 minutes between bell and pickup. BC Transit Arrow Heights has 8 minutes, and only Arrow Heights has a concern. If we're going to determine what an adequate or a more substantial delay in picking up is that the goal? I'm not quite certain in what extent would this, what would be an acceptable change to council to readdress all of the scheduling, reprinting, rebranding, updating web pages, etc. And it seems that there has been some correspondence received by council. However, it does appear that it is working, though it is tight. And I'm not aware that people are being left behind at this point in time.
So, Counselor, I'll come back to you for clarification for Mr. Black. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Certainly, I can elaborate. I mean, again, there's been numerous emails that have come in from the public. There is childcare providers that are relying on the bus system to get to and from the school to their facilities. I don't believe the current changes address the needs of the school system and those that need it most. I believe that the current changes only benefit those going to and from RMR, which is probably the reason why we're seeing such an increase in riders on the buses. And I believe that as an elected representative for the community of Revelstoke, I believe it's my job to address issues as they come up. I don't believe that these changes reflected the needs of the community, which is why we're seeing such an outcry from the community. So I'm more than happy to work with Director Black, either through the Public Infrastructure Committee or maybe a special task force if need be in order to address these concerns. But that is what I'm hoping to have resolved today, is some way of moving forward so we can address these concerns.
Councilor Plummer?
Yeah, could I have the motion read back?
Certainly.
Ms. Russo, could you read the motion back, please?
Yes, Your Worship. The motion, as I have it, is that staff work with the after-school childcare providers to address bus and scheduling concerns and report back to council on progress at the January 12th, 2024 council meeting.
So, so just speaking to a motion, I'm supportive of the motion. It's not asking for a schedule change. It's asking to work with the after-school society. So, looking for some solutions for some of their concerns. On Tuesday's meeting, I guess what I heard, I thought I heard is that we were already adjusting some of the times and stuff. But then this letter came in yesterday, I think it was, in response. So I think there's some communications. I think basically this is about communications. And so I'm supportive of the motion. It's not asking for any specific operational things. It's asking to work with the after-school society, and I think that's fair.
Okay, Councilor Chair, you seconded the motion. You have a comment? I know I'm putting it on the spot.
Yeah, I was just rereading the email. I think we'd all hope to see a bus program that is available for all. We do have some concerns. I'm unsure how big of a change we're looking for here, or if a delay of maybe 5 minutes, not doable. I think we're all just trying to get to a better spot, so.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilor Lusso?
Thanks, Mayor Stoles. Yeah, I'm in support of this motion. I would support the motion because right now with it worded for just being the After School Care Society, I know we've had other emails about childcare during the day. And I think those individuals and childcare providers should be considering this as well. And I know that there are concerns outside of this motion that bus stops are being removed from mobility restricted areas. Like I know Moberly Manor doesn't have a bus stop anymore. So I'm dealing with more and more complaints on the social side of things about the changes for the bus program and how the same viewpoint is that it's supporting RMR, but the community at large seems to be a second thought in that.
Okay, Councilor Lano?
Your worship, yeah. Apologies for the voice. I do support having a report back on progress. I think our effort to address community concerns so far has had benefits, both for making improvements to the system and better understanding the system. And as we heard from Director Black last time around, some bolstered communications about the changes as well as the multi-phase changes. And I guess what I really want to say from my heart is that if we do communications better on these things, we don't end up in this situation. We've got to start from the start. We were promised good communications on this. When we voted to support it, it did not happen. I don't even know if anyone received media releases or whatever. And when finally there was a link available to be shared out, the schedule was not on it. People went to go look and they couldn't understand it and had to go through, investigate the system. When we approved it, we had no schedule. I'm not just hearing specifically complaints about a couple of buses you have to rush to get. It's that the entire hub system downtown is no longer synchronized and coordinated. So if you want to get from Columbia Park to the hospital, you're looking at 45 minutes waiting downtown. And definitely the feeling that, and the letters were a small part of the feedback I've received. I've received feedback from disability groups. I've received feedback from individuals with disabilities who could no longer get to work, individuals with mild disabilities who can no longer get to work. And I mean, literally a classroom full of students who are going, what the hell, Aaron? Like, what's going on here with the bus thing? And that's all related to their children not being able to get there. So what's happened so far is we've listened, despite not communicating, and we are making improvements, and we can make more, including, for example, as I've responded and communicated with those advocating for people with disabilities, that we need to lobby to BC Transit to get buses, accessible buses for the change next year. So it's been an improvement process as we've engaged. I did sense a reluctance last time around from Director Black to report back on this, and I think that's an error. I think we should show we're listening. I think we should show we can make improvements, and I think we should show we could get there. One last thought, and I did voice it last time, is Director Black, you said in the meeting you had not heard from anybody. I followed up with the people, and they said they called the BC Transit contact and either were not given a satisfactory answer or did not receive a response. I myself emailed the BC Transit email on behalf of somebody else who was reluctant to do it. I did receive a call back and then a commitment to get back to me after that when they did not have the answers I needed, and I did not receive it. Again, last thing I say, I hate to harp on communications, but we don't need to get in these situations. We just get better at this and we do what we say we're going to do and follow through. So I would like to hear a report back. I support what Councillor Stapenhurst is asking for here. We shouldn't be afraid of this. We can do better, and we can show the community we're listening and responding. Thank you.
Councillor Devlin, any comments?
I was not here for the first half of this conversation at the end of the last meeting, so I'm a little bit struggling to catch up kind of where we're at. From what I'm understanding, I have all the emails, I've read all of those. I generally don't have any problem with asking us to look into these things when we're receiving this kind of feedback. I'm in support of it simply because I don't, without blaming staff or anything like that, that's not what I'm saying. I think that exploring it when we receive this much public feedback to the negative is not a waste of time. That's sort of our job, is to look into things that people have concerns of. If it's more than a couple of people, and this is definitely more than a couple of people, so I'm in support of this.
Okay, so we're going into the Christmas season, and I don't know, Mr. Black, if you could even engage with your city partners on transit to have a report by January 12th. So that's a question to you. How do you feel about that?
Through your worship to all council, I believe we can put together a minimum of verbal report for consideration at that meeting.
Okay.
And at best a fulsome report.
Okay, so I was going to vote against this because I think this is a BC Transit, everything Revelstoke transfer issue. And we've got a few people that are complaining they can't get the bus when the school district's basically making it work for them. However, I am concerned about those buses for those who are have ability issues, and I think that's a long haul practice, but saying that you think that you could do something from a verbal perspective, I will support this. And I think everyone's had a chance to give their comment, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? No, motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you for your time. All right, any other business arising from the minutes, Councilor Ballmer?
Thank you, Mayor. So just regarding the meeting schedule, so we had a long meeting on Tuesday and didn't really discuss it. And through the year and previously, there's been questions about the timing of the committee meetings. Some concerns around cancellation of meetings or last minute, and also the role of the committee of the whole. So definitely, I would like to have a dialogue. I don't know where other councillors are on that. I think we just kind of routinely pass that, and it's status quo. And I would like to have some more discussion. That can be now, or it could be another time.
Well, we don't have our corporate officer here, so I think we should maybe bring that up at another meeting and discuss that, so we can do that early part of the new year.
Okay, so I would suggest that I'll put it as a motion to have the meeting schedule discussion at the next committee of the whole.
Okay, sounds good. Someone want to second that? Councillor Staples, any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? No, motion's carried. Thank you. Any other business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to move right on to item 11A. We have a verbal or a report regarding Rollinsford Community Housing Society request for support.
Excuse me, sir. I'm gonna recuse myself from this conversation. I believe it could be perceived that I have a conflict of interest with my wife being an employee there. Okay?
Thank you for that comment.
And did we go in camera? Did we do a motion?
This is still public.
Okay.
Still public.
Anyways, so Mr. Mayor, I'll just turn this over to our Director of Economic Development. She can provide you a update on this request that you see before yourself. And then welcome the good news. Thank you.
Ms. Braun, the floor is yours.
I don't think I've ever prepared a report in response so quickly. Given that we saw the letter from the Housing Society and their walk-in delegation the other day. Yeah, we met the next day as Evan mentioned, with Paul and Steve and Shiana to review, or Shiana joined us remotely, different parts, to review the funding we had available through REDA. As you know, we provided $100,000 of REDA funding to the Housing Society early last year, early in the spring, winter. And it suggested that we could probably have the most flexibility with reallocating another chunk of funding from that. And so what we did yesterday is we went through the different deliverables for the REDA project. We pulled out those that could only be funded with REDA funding that are being covered by Steve and Paul's department. So they've undertaken the master planning of Oscar Street lands. And we were able to come up with, to align with the Housing Society's request, another $87,500 from REDA. And so we would like to roll that into the $100,000 we gave them last year and then top it off with, if need be, $12,500 from the economic opportunity allocation that comes to CED every year. We have consulting fees set aside for those smaller projects. And that would be able to respond to their request for $100,000. We do a contract for $200,000. And then at the same time, Director Moore requested that in order to meet the deliverables of the REDA program, that we transfer $287,500 from the MRUT OMP Affordable Housing Fund to the city to make sure that they can carry out those deliverables for the REDA program. So essentially, when they go back to the ministry to report on our REDA funding, we will be able to say, yes, we met all these deliverables. We brought another few $100,000 to the table, and we did A, B, C, D plus FGHIJ. So it makes everything bigger. It's a allowable use of our OAP funds. Does not compromise the intended use of the REDA funds, and it allows us to support the Housing Society through 1 year of funding to enable their capacity to respond to the Yonge Street RFP.
And so by having these funds go to this group, they're able to apply for the position that they want to apply for. Good chance that they'll get it, and then that will motivate BC Housing to get shovels in the ground for that 4th Street Downing project, correct?
Great. I think it's the best shot to try to get the Downing Street building off the ground in the timeframe they're proposing and to support the Housing Society while council grapples with a larger project management discussion around housing authority. It allows us to give them 1 year funding without any implications on taxation. It's in line with the goals of the REDIT program. It's a good use of the small portion of UF funding we may have to top it off with, but it leaves us open to continue to take advantage of the opportunity presented by the half grant if we get that, by other partners who come to the table, such as Community Futures, who want to support workforce housing, and to also stipulate in the application to BC Housing that they're looking for city support. We would respectfully ask that they provide that capacity funding to the Housing Society, and the city in turn can bring more of the MRDT OEP funds to the table. So we will really lobby the BC Housing to ensure that they provide the capacity for the Housing Society, which, at this point isn't something the council is prepared to support in 2024, at least with taxation.
Sure, thank you. Any comments from council? Councilor Chair.
Thanks, Your Worship. Do you want this put on the table first or just
Yep.
questions?
Councilor, you want to put that recommendation on?
I don't have it on my screen. If you've got it.
Yeah.
Oh, I got
The council directs staff to develop a contract for the Revelstoke Community Housing Society to allocate $200,000 for the affordable housing initiatives, and the council approved the allocation of $287,500 from the MRDT OAP Affordable Housing Fund to the city to support the REDIT program deliverables.
Second for the motion, Councilor Cherry's seconding that motion. Councilor Devlin had made that motion. Ms. Rousseau, for the record. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Chair.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just looking for a confirmation that these funds are able to be used in this manner?
Absolutely. You'll notice Schedule A attached to
Yeah.
your application. I pulled those deliverables right out of the REDIT application that we wrote. We wrote the application with the intention of supporting capacity with not-for-profit housing organizations to be able to respond to these kinds of grant opportunities. So we built right into it that we could use REDIT money to, for instance, increase organizational capacity to support planning, design, regulatory approvals, to enhance capacity to collaborate, to respond to investment opportunities. So it's all within the REDIT application. We've already given them $100,000 to this end. So now we would basically add another $87,500 from this and a little bit from our US budget. But we're not diminishing what we're going to be delivering through REDIT. We're going to go get the funds from the OP so that they can still put the pipes in the ground around the Oscar Street lands and implement the master planning that's underway right now.
That is fantastic news, and you're very quick to find some pockets for this.
I just hope the resolution's worded perfectly because I literally wrote it 20 minutes. I think it's
It's good. Any other comments from council? Councilor Lemon.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Ms. Rousseau. I just wanted to double check. So just because I was updating my agenda and I don't have it in here, does all of that math come together to this $100,000 request that they've made for 1 year in funding, or is it more than that? I'm just a slightly bit unclear.
Their letter asks for, I read it quickly, about $100,000. I think their application that they were considering for OEP, which was deemed ineligible, was $104,000.
Okay.
They can send us an invoice for the other $4,000 if necessary, but I think their letter that came before you 2 days ago says about $100,000.
Okay, so 100 for this new request, 100 that was given last year, and then the other 87,000 was spent on developing Oscar Street, which we actually had a presentation yesterday from Mr. Simon on. Is that correct? So just seeking confirmation.
Not quite. It's 100 that we already gave them. Another 7,500 because that's what the REDIT budget allows for the eligible rates. We'll top it off with 12,500. So they will have a contract for 200,000, 100 last year, 100 this year, and then we will go to OEP and pull out the 287,000 that we have shorted ourselves with the REDIT program.
Okay, okay. So yeah, so we're meeting the request. That's fantastic. So I just want to comment. Yeah, thank you. I know the group will be really happy. As I emphasize, a really competent group, and we've got a lot of work to do. We have tomorrow full day meetings, working on responding to. I guess our own RFP, I guess you want to call it, or expressions of interest from development groups get going on this. And, you know, this is going to be a fantastic project. Obviously, we're under crunch for January 8th initial meeting with BC Housing and February 4th meeting to hopefully get going this year. So we're really just trying to anticipate anything coming up. And I know they will be happy and you know, excited to bring this project home to Revelstoke. So I would ask for a reminder at the end of the meeting to bring it out in camera, if that is okay, because I would like to report it to the board afterwards, or the president, so that they're aware that it's going to be there. And just to be clear with everyone, it's 1 year funding for the position is the concept, and then to work to find funding moving forward beyond that is we need the professional capacity to do this kind of development work.
Great, and just so you're aware, Councillor Orlando, this is not in camera, it's public knowledge now. Mr. Parliament, you have a comment?
Yeah, so the challenge at council was, you know, we more or less adopted the 2024 municipal tax rate and not the tax rate, sorry, but the 5% increase for 2024 to meet the operating and capital budget. And so this request coming at the last minute forced staff to find ways to fund it outside taxpayer support. We didn't feel it was necessary to go and revisit the budget and just make this a line item for the 2024 budget. So forced staff to be creative and come up with a solution, a financial package here that can work within the existing grant program that was explained by Ms. Braun. And so accessing 87.5 out of the REDA, pulling the additional 12.5 out of EOF, and then making that change to the OAP fund back into the reserve is what I think a very creative way to meet this request at such last minute. It just, the timing was challenging for staff because we had just more or less finalized the 2024 budget. So I want to say thank you to Ingrid and Steve, Shiana, the team that put together this package. This was literally put together in the last 24 hours as per the request in the letter that came in earlier this week.
Great, thank you, Mr. Parliament. All right, you have a brief comment?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. There was a couple other items identified in the letter. I'm wondering if we are able to get an update on those as well. So it was a promissory note covering the senior wage, funding for 3 to 4 years, endorsement through a support letter identifying potential contributions through DCC and municipal services, assistance in navigating municipal processes, and any additional capacities that support their bid to BC Housing.
I'll speak to some of that.
Please.
I've already agreed as Tahate's manager to support his time, up to 50% of it, to get this application across the finish line in the next 2 months. I believe it's due February sometime. We are definitely, didn't put it in the report, but intending to provide a letter of support for their application. This removes the necessity for a promissory note. And other potential contributions to DCCs, I would leave that to the planning department and to Director Black to assist with that or show how they're intending to support that. But my understanding from the meeting yesterday was that we all want to work together to get this across the finish line, whatever it takes. The challenge is that they have to have something down by January 9th.
Yeah.
So we had to move pretty quickly, but we haven't impacted taxation. We haven't taken away from our resources. We are using OEP monies for their intended purpose. So we basically just made the pie bigger.
Thanks, I appreciate that update and everything you guys are all doing in collaboration.
Any other comment, Mr. Parliament?
Just one last thing. So really the ask is more than 1 year. They want support for the next 3, 4, 5 years as they transition from a society to have a full functioning staff person and possibly an authority. We don't know that yet. But we just wanted to get 2024 nailed down. we have lots of options next year as to fund year 2, 3, and 4 that we can explore. Don't need to get into it now, but for now, the focus was given RCHS the commitment to proceed with the application and support them and let BC Housing know that the city stands behind our society. And we were focused on just getting the immediate funding arrangement so they could respond to the RFP.
This is basically our commitment to BC Housing and to RCHS to ensure that we can get a project that BC Housing came to us kind of after the fact, after they bought the school property. We're doing what we can. And for those of you who've been at UBCM and have heard the comments that I've made and some of you have made to BC Housing, this is basically saying, listen, we're committed. You guys be committed. And so this is a great way to move forward. And so unless there's any other comments, I'm going to call the question. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. So just a few questions. I am supportive of the motion, but I'm just a bit confused because we've just landed here on a few things. So I just want to clarify. Again, thank you to staff for finding some approaches to address the challenges that have been forced on us by senior governments. I won't complicate on that again right now. However, so just a couple of questions. So the motion is to allocate 200,000 for affordable housing initiatives. And maybe it's in here. So that 200,000, do we know specifically where that 200,000 is coming from?
Yes, REDIP. So I'm specifically asking for your support to develop a contract. They were given 100,000 last year, a big check, but there was no contract in place. So I'd like to combine this to make one contract that aligns with the deliverables through the REDIP program. So yes, the full allocation is 200,000. I've got 100, and this is the other 100. And we have a contract to support those deliverables. But of that 200, 187,500 is from REDIP, 13,500 is from UF,
Right.
or another potential law. That's our backstop.
Okay, so just that 200,000 in the first motion includes the 100,000 that we've already.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
I
there's a
think that's
mistake on
important.
the financial implications. I wrote down, we would be giving them the original 100,000 in addition to another 187. That should just be 87.
Right,
So I
okay.
got that after I put this up. So-
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And then, so there's a note here, further 100,000 was allocated to the grant funds, from the grant funds to cover the city's contribution to the water main expansion to the airport. So I'm sorry for my confusion. What's the relevance of that to?
Because we pulled, it was more or less related to the REDIP application, but it was again, similar to this, a way to be able to use funds that aligned with the intended use, but get us that commitment initially without going into taxation. But what that means is that 100 use of the water grant, the 100 we gave for the Housing Society, and another 87,500 equals 287,500 that we've pulled out of the REDIP grant. So that all fits within the REDIP grant, but what we're saying is they still need the monies to do the implement the master plan in Oscar Street. So we're going to use OEP for that, which is perfectly eligible. Makes sense?
I can try to help. Let me try to help with REDIP, because I know it gets confusing. So I just spent, I don't know how many hours on REDIP number 2. So we submitted REDIP number 2 application at the end of October for supporting RCEC. So I went through the whole REDIP grant and I understand the different streams. So REDIP 1 was given to the city of Revelstoke in it was applied for in January 2023, and I think the announcement was in the spring, where we received 500,000 under the forestry transition stream, correct?
Yeah, I've got the application
Right.
here and the budget here.
Right. So we received 500,000 under the forestry transition stream. So that money is given to municipalities to assist transitioning out of forestry, preparing yourself in the event of forestry clawbacks, forestry challenges, those resource-dependent communities that rely on forestry, as you transition in the future into different economies and diversifying your economy. Of that 500,000, we pulled 100,000 to support the expansion of water to the airport because they're building the wildfire accommodation facility, partnering with the CSRD. That 100,000 was eligible. Plus we gave RCHS last spring $100,000. Plus we're giving them another 87.5 out of that same pot of money, all under that stream. And it's a very creative way of meeting the objectives of the grant, plus supporting Oscar Street. Because under the forestry stream of REDUP, there is a criteria, I don't exactly know the word, on housing, Ingrid?
Not specifically related
Or is
to
it
housing,
infrastructure?
but you'll see the Schedule A, I've pulled the priorities out of our approved grant application to include, because it does align with what we're doing for
Right.
the society. It
So
includes
consulting
increased
fees,
organizational capacity to support planning design, collaborating with relevant not-for-profits to support project management and regulatory approvals processes. The funding itself is pulled out of 3 line items in the application that add up to 187,500. And
Right.
so we're topping it off with a little bit of EOF funding.
Right.
Those are the only categories that I feel comfortable allocating to the Housing Society. Everything else under REDUP is really quite technical.
Yep.
And there will still be enough of that funds left. We use some of that for the water main, the rest will be part of the Oscar Street plans, but they're still going to, because we diverted some of the water main and now more of the Housing Society, we still would like to be able to, well, Director Moore's recommendation, nail down to 287,000 from WAP so that when other people come forward looking for it,
Yeah.
we have that money set aside for the Oscar Street project.
so really REDUP 1 has saved the city of Revelstoke a lot this year, and we've accessed it, and that's all we're doing here. To fulfill the commitments from our partners.
Okay.
Follow up, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for that explanation. And it's partially just because I'm trying to digest this on the spot. The shortfall of 12,500 is fairly kind of minor amount. I'd hate to see a lot of work go into finding that. I'm just wondering if it might be more appropriate to. I'm not asking for any decisions here, but I just wonder if it might be better if that was. Savings were found in our current budget, just to fund that. So it's just a thought. The last question that I have, actually second last. So 50% of Taha's time is going to be allocated. So there is a tax implication of that. Is that for 50% over 2024?
No, just the next 2 months to get the application in. And it is entirely within his mandate to support affordable housing initiatives. So, it's just whichever projects we devote him to. So as you know, he's been doing a lot of.
Just the
work.
application.
Okay, so that's just not operational.
Yes, that's part of his. work.
Okay, good.
And if I respond to your other question about the 13,500, it wouldn't be a separate request to EOF money. Our department gets a fairly substantial allocation of EOF money every year, and within that, we have a fairly healthy line for project consulting fees
Okay,
that we can allocate to whatever is a project of the day or the need of the day, and so this would
Yeah,
be
the
that way.
12.5.
Yeah, it doesn't imperil our department at all.
and then just a comment on the support year 2, 3, and 4. That's sort of a classic budget creep kind of thing. So do we have a sort of a hunch of order of magnitude of budget implication?
Well,
Or is it coming out of the MRDT, the OAP funds, or do we have a sense of it?
we have several options just quickly. Our big hope is we get approved for half funding. If we get approved for half funding, the Housing Accelerator Fund,
Yeah.
we solve a lot of housing funding initiatives. And we would be able to support the society moving forward using half funds. If we don't get half funding, there are other pots that we could look at. And then, of course, incorporating the legislative changes in Victoria that allow municipalities to create reserves vis-a-vis new housing and the changes and the different bills that Paul Simon has talked about, 44, 45, 35, et cetera. There are other opportunities, or council may just decide to create a line item in the budget and saying, you know what, we're committed. If we break ground in 2024 and RCHS needs more funding support, council always has the option to look at internal reserves or a line item where it is tax supported moving forward. But really, in short, I think we're all hoping that the province is kind to us and provides us with half funding, which would solve a lot of these challenges.
And I would add one thing to that is there's no reason why BC Housing shouldn't, if they award the proposal to the Housing Society, pay for their capacity. It's just,
Right.
we need to get them, over the next several months where they're working back and forth and negotiating with that. So that would be our first line of defense, is to ask in the application, please support capacity as a housing society. The city can show support in other ways by committing capital funding through our OAP.
Right.
But we cannot use OAP money for staffing for the soft costs.
So yeah, just final thank you again to staff for getting this together, and I agree that the province should be coming in. I think they should also send us a thank you letter to the city of Revelstoke for doing their job. Thank you.
I don't disagree. All right, Councillor Orlando, brief, and then I'm going to call a question.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to be finally moving ahead with this project. There's been a bit of a delay, but I would just like to emphasize that what we've seen is great partnership, whether it's from all of the hard work of the volunteers, the Revelstoke Community Housing Society, as well as staff who have been having a great interface with the society and with the city. Another example of the city coming to support this project with funding here today. And I would just make a comment, Councillor Palmer, to the provincial government as well, in getting this together and moving towards this project. This is a really big project, probably one of the biggest they have going on in the province, and it's going to be great and much appreciated. And I just want to keep the tone on, we've got it together, we've got everyone together, we're all rowing in the same direction, and this is going to be a big win for everyone involved at the end there. So that's my politicking right here. So
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? No. Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Braun. Thank you to you and your colleagues for working so hard. Mr. Black, Shanna, all the help, Taha, and Evan, to get this across the finish line. Thank you for that.
With a letter of support that'll address all those other questions that were raised, about how we can support the planning and.
Good. All right. Thank you again. All right, I am now going to move on to, I'm going to ask to go in camera.
Well, just point of order, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a quick comment earlier today. Thank you, staff, for bringing this forward at the last minute. I did check the agenda just prior to the meeting starting, and this wasn't there in the distance connection to the meeting. I was assuming we were in camera meeting at the start, so I was perhaps speaking a bit more forthrightly as I would have been in mentioning a couple specifics that I wouldn't have been knowing that it was a public meeting as opposed to an in-camera meeting. So I just want to point out the error on my part there. I don't think there was any major fouls, but certainly the tone of my conversation being direct, as well as mentioning a couple specific examples that I wouldn't have had I known that it was in a public forum. So I just wanted to acknowledge that while we're still in the public section. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to move on and ask to go in camera pursuant to section 90.1 A and K of the Community Charter. Moved by Councillor Palmer, seconded by Councillor Stapenners. All in favor? Motion's carried. We are now going to go in camera. So Ms. Rousseau, you'll stop the live stream and keep our councillors on. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Worship, I'm ending it right now.